All right. So before I get started, I do want to mention that Lucemon's a difficult deck to sort of showcase because of its non-linear play pattern and play style. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to speed through this profile as best as I can and omit information that's not relevant to the way I'm playing this deck and try to condense this video as much as I can. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. We're playing 4 copies of not Flickmon. Huh. Awkward. Okay, we now have the correct deck profile. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. We play 4 copies of EX and keep them on. Just a really strong egg. It reads, when any of your Digimon with Lucemon in their names move from the breeding area to the battle area, by trashing a card from your hand, you draw a card, you gain memory. This helps with consistency, it helps settle the trash, it helps you gain memory to not get memory choked, and if you have multiple of these on board, which doesn't happen often but does enough, whenever a Lucemon pushes out, you'll trigger all the Cupidmons. So you'll draw multiple cards, you'll trash multiple cards, you'll gain multiple memory, and gain multiple memory. That's funny. You'll gain a lot of value from this card. And this card also enables a lot of the end of turn shenanigans that this deck now has access to. So just a really good egg for this deck. And you will never run out of it either, because you can infinitely recycle every card in this deck that has Lucemon in their text. So you don't need any other egg. I think that's all I have to say for this card for now. And I'll show you later in the video how to do some of these, really nutty combos that Lucemon has access to now. With that being said, I'll go on to the level 3s. We're playing 4 copies of EX6 Lucemon. This is the main searcher. This is a card you're trying to see as early as possible in the game, because it reads, this card will be played. If you don't have a level 5 or lower Digimon, you can play for 5, which is good. And start a main phase on play. You reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add an angel, or another angel, or a different kind of angel, or a 7th grade Demon Lord, add that to your hand, trash the rest. So like keep them on, it helps with adding things to your hand, trashing the things you want in your trash, and all around good card. One thing you need to be mindful though is that this card, that part of the effect got a bit nerfed because one of the strongest cards in the deck is a Tamer, and this card cannot add the Tamer, nor can it add the Roaring Knights that came out in AD1. So be careful when you're playing this card. And it has an end of your turn effect though. By placing a level 6 Digimon from your battle area to the top of your security, this Digimon can evolve into a Lucemon Chaos Mode from trash without paying its cost. That effect actually becomes a little bit more relevant with the release of AD1 because of the good value Royal Knights that we got from this set. So while the first effect got a bit of, it's a little bit of a, like a double-edged sword, the end of turn effect, you can now proc that more often and for good value. Still a good card, and ideally you want to mulligan into this card with the Tamer. That being said, we'll go on to the next rookie, which is 4 copies of BT18 Kid Lucemon. He doesn't have the reduction play cost condition, but it still evils over keep him on for 5. And it has a starter main on play. By trashing a card from your hand, your opponent may trash your top security. If they don't, then you get a recovery. That effect's kind of good. It's sometimes not great early because you'll find yourself discarding a bunch of cards from your hand and having a small hand size, which means you'll be limited with play options, but it's still a good card. And has the same end of turn effect as EX6, which is put a level 6 from battle area to security, even to Chaos Mode for free. Strategically, you want to open up and get this Lucemon in your hand, and you want to trash this one as fast as possible. This is the one that you want to play out, or you want your security to play out when your opponent checks into one of the many cards in this deck that play out a Kid Lucemon. When you're playing it, if you have these in your hand, and you push out, you evo into Cupidmon, or you evo into this Lucemon, and then when you push this out, you discard this Lucemon, and then you're kind of now setting up your engine. But yeah, it's still a good card, but not my favorite. In fact, it's my least favorite to find early on, especially if I don't have this one. That being said, we'll go on to the next Lucemon, which is perhaps my favorite, and that is 4 copies of EX10 Kid Lucemon. This card evolves over keep him on for 5. It's a blocker and has a breeding effect that says when digivolving, this Digimon may move. So you evolve over Cupid and it pushes out right away. If you're able to keep turn, this card can swing. It can attack because it doesn't have summoning sickness due to Digimon game mechanics. And it also has an end of your turn effect, kind of similar to these two and how they evolve into Chaos Mode, but different. Same, but different. and that is end of your turn by putting 5 cards with Lucemon in their text from your trash to the bottom of your deck, and that also includes these Cupimons. You can put those back into the breeding zone. This card can evolve into a Chaos mode for free. This card is actually incredible and does all the crazy stuff the deck now wants to do. You know, I personally call this card like the party never stops Lucemon, because before this card, when they would clear your board, you will lose a turn trying to set up another Lucemon, passing memory back to your opponent, and then they'll do stuff. This card makes it so you never skip a beat. And again, I'll go into it later in this video, but this card enables pretty much all the plays that this deck wants to do to force your opponent to make multiple bad decisions, to force them to either trash security or delete their own cards and swing multiple times. It's crazy. It's crazy what this card can do. And again, I'll show you in this video how you're supposed to optimize the use of this card. That being said, I have 4 more rookies. These are controversial, but I hate breaking in Digimon. And in any deck that I don't play training in, I'm playing this card. That is BT16 Ukomon. And it's one of those Digimon that, you know, again, not everyone's favorite, but it kind of synergizes with this deck, for me specifically. That is, when this Digimon moves out, search top 3, add a card. The reason why I'm playing this card is because I'm looking for the Tamer. If I find the Tamer, the win percentage of this deck shoots up. If I don't find the Tamer, then I'm sort of limited with the options, because the Tamer for this deck enables all the end of turn stuff that you want to do with the whole package. Ideally, if I'm going first, I'm mulliganing for this card, for this Lucemon and the Tamer. If I don't, then I'm mulliganing for Ukomon, because I just want to go ahead and go Evo for 1. Opponent passes turn back to me. I can push out, search top 3, hopefully find the Tamer. And a cool thing is, if I find the Tamer, which you'll see later, Ukomon will search top 3, and then it'll hatch a Cube in the back. If I evo into this Lucemon, it'll push out and it'll proc both of the Cupimons. And I guess I should mention that when you push out this Ukomon with the Cupimon, it won't trigger the Cupimon because it does not have Lucemon in the text. But in that same turn, if I evo over this for 5, push out, I'll trigger Cupimon, discard a card, draw 1, gain 1. This Cupimon will discard a card, draw 1, gain 1. So you effectively get a 3-cost Lucemon. And if I do that with the Tamer, well, then it's even more busted. It's a good card. But the funny thing about this card is that it's controversial in the Lucemon community. I know a lot of people that love this card. I know a lot of people that are not a big fan of it. So for the purpose of this deck profile, we're gonna move this guy just back here, just out of respect of, the Lucemon players. He's still in this deck, but I want the forefront to be all Lucemons. On with the 5s, because we play no 4s, and that is 4 copies of perhaps what most consider, or most Lucemon players will be the most critical card of the deck, and that is EX6 Lucemon Chaos Mode. This Digimon evolves over level 4 for 8. You will never do that. You only will evolve over Lucemon for a cost of 6. And on play when Digivolving, your opponent may delete one of their Tamers. If this effect didn't delete, they'll trash the top security and you'll recover 1. That effect's actually really dang good. And it's really good if you can force the trash security recover 1. What I tell people when they're playing this deck, when they're learning how to play it, like the easy flowchart, if your opponent has a level 3 or lower Digimon, they're almost always going to sacrifice it when they're forced to resolve this effect. If you can find a way to get rid of the level 3 first, and then evo into this card, then you get a lot of value. General rule of thumb. Again, it changes by matchup and a case-by-case basis, but if your opponent has level 3 or lower Digimon, try not to evo into this card. If they have a level 4 or higher, or a Tamer, make them make the choice of delete your level 4 or higher Digimon, which is a stack you're committing to, or delete one of your Tamers, which will get rid of one of your long-term resources. When you can resolve this effect that way, then you're getting a lot of value from this card. But if you go into this card and they just delete a level 3 Digimon, then this card becomes incredibly weak. And for me, sometimes it's just not even worth evolving into. But that's not why this card's really good. Well, that's part of it. What makes this card really strong is insane all turns floating effect, which is when this card leaves the battle area, by placing one Kid Lucemon from under its inherited sources or from your trash to the bottom of your deck, you can play a level 6 or higher 7th grade Demon Lord or a Lucemon Satyr mode from your trash without paying cost. That oftentimes, or that can, turn into a bomb. You want to put a Satyr mode with larva in here, It gets this. Your opponent attempts to remove this card. It plays out the Satan. It plays out the Larva, and you blow up all their Digimon for the highest level, of course. This card also enables a lot of toolbox variants for this deck, and it's kind of why I think that Lucemon generally doesn't have a single optimal build, just because there's so many different cards that you can tech depending on what's common at your locals and whatever. A lot of it again is centered around this card, mainly for that all-turns effect, but also sort of abusing his on-play when Digivolving effect. It's a 4 of. You can kind of cut it, maybe to 3, but I wouldn't recommend it. Keep it at 4 and abuse this as much as you can. And to make sure we're not short on Lucemon Chaos modes, we're also playing one copy of the BT18 Lucemon Chaos mode, which has the same on-play when Digivolving effect. You know, your opponent can delete one of their cards. If not, they trash your top security and you get a recovery one. But it has an all-turns effect. When this Digimon will leave the battle area by trashing your bottom security card, it doesn't leave. So one thing about these cards is like, this card's kind of good, and in my opinion, it's gotten a little better because it requires less setup. You can just E1 to this card, try to abuse that on play when Digivolving, and it kind of is a little bit difficult to remove. This card's really good, but it requires more setup. So there's a world where I cut this one to 3 and bump this one to 2, but for this profile, I'm currently doing a 4-1 split. But all around good card. And there's not much to say about this card. A lot of times I don't find myself evil. I don't see, since I only have it at 1, I don't see it as often as the other Lucemons. But this next one, perhaps, is the most underrated Lucemon Chaos mode. When I first got this card, I thought it was just not that great. And then as I started playing this deck, this card became that good. It's weird how that works out, but I'll tell you what it does. Evil's over a kid Lucemon for a cost of 5. Then when Digivolving when attacking, by trashing one card from your hand, your opponent may delete one of the Digimon or Tamers. If they didn't, recovery +1. That effect's not once per turn. And you're gonna find yourself very often E1 into this card, discarding the card, and then telling your opponent, delete a Digimon or Tamer. And they were like, well, I'll just delete this card, whatever. Then you're gonna find a way to gain memory to go back to 0 and then attack with it and then do it again. And your opponent's gonna go, you know, for newer opponents or opponents who are not familiar with Lucemon are gonna go, whoa, that's not once per turn? And you're gonna say, no, not that effect. And this card, weirdly enough, you know, when your opponent has a level 3 or lower Digimon, avoid going into the Chaos mode in this top row and go into this one, because this effect not once per turn, or as in it's easier to proc multiple times in a single turn. Your opponent's gonna probably sacrifice the rookie on the first time, or the first time you proc the effect, and then you're gonna attack, and they're gonna have no rookie to sacrifice, which means you're gonna just recover at that point. Weirdly a good card. And this card in this deck, there's a combo that lets you attack with this card, proc that effect 3 times in 1 turn. So it's really good. It's really surpassed my expectations of what I was expecting from it. The all turns effect isn't too great, but it does come up where, you know, if you're proccing that first effect multiple times, then when you trigger the all turns once per turn, when the Digimon will leave the battle area, your opponent may delete one of their Digimon or Tamers. If they don't, then he'll stay. If they have a wide board, then they can easily get rid of this card. If they don't have a wide board, then they have to make a painful choice when they get rid of it. And one of the weird things is, you know, something that's overlooked when people are playing Lucemon is all these cards are overstated for their levels. You know, level 5 that has 13,000 EP, level 3s that have 10k. They're really strong guys. So it's not easy to attack over this card and remove them. You kind of have to get rid of them with Digimon effects. And when you do, you have to make a painful choice when you're getting rid of this card, when you're getting rid of this card. Not so much when you're getting rid of this card, but overall, this card's really good. And again, at the end of the video, I'll show you some of the combos you can do with this card. And one thing I didn't mention is one thing that Lucemon has struggled with, at least from my experience, is trashing cards that are in your hand. Sometimes you have a big hand size and you need half those cards to be in your trash pile. So that's when you want to abuse BT18 Kid Lucemon or EX10 Lucemon Chaos mode. They'll just start shredding your hand, getting all the things you need in trash, and then now you're set up to do all the follow-up plays. Automatic 4-up. I think there's a world where I can just say this is now my favorite Chaos mode. and it sounds silly, but I do like it a lot. I do like how much pressure it applies to the opponent's board because it's not once per turn. But that being said, I'll just jump into the level 6s now. The first half of the level 6s, which is the new stuff that came out from AD1. And the first card will be Lord Nightmon, or I'm a Digimon Frontier English sub fan, so I call this Crusadermon. But not the point here. When the Digimon will be played, if you have a Digimon with Nightmon or Lucemon in its name, you can reduce the play cost by 5. On play when Digivolving, until your opponent's turn ends, their Digimon effects don't affect one of your Digimon. That's huge, and that's relevant because one of the biggest weaknesses of this deck is your level 3 Lucemons turn into one of these really good Chaos modes, and then your opponent de-Digivolves one of these Chaos modes. And now you're kind of struggling to find memory to go back into this card and going into any follow-up plays. Lord Nightmon giving that immunity effect now makes it so your opponent has to deal with these Chaos modes without de-Digivolve. They can remove it, they can raid into it, they can do all these things, but they're forced to deal with these alternate effects that these Lucemons have. Really nice support for this deck. I had it at 2, I found out how valuable it was, and I'm like, I'm bumping it to 3. There's a world where you can push it to 4, but I'm not there yet. And that's from the first part of the effect. The second effect is all turns, once per turn, when any of your Digimon with Nightmon or Lucemon in their techs are played, de-Digivolve 2. This card sees itself get played. So if you have a Lucemon on board, you can play her for a reduction of 5, de-Digivolve 2, and then end the turn, put a level 6 Digimon on top of your security to evo into one of these Chaos modes. You're making multiple plays in one sequence of events. It makes it easier for you to now break boards now, because you now have access to built-in de-Digivolve. And if de-Digivolve 2 wasn't enough, you have the security effect that says de-Digivolve 1 of your opponent's Digimon, and then delete one of the Digimon with the play cost superior less. That comes up against a lot of matchups. It's good against Superior Digimon. It's good against a lot of things, generally. Things are not trashing your security. A good value card, and the fact that you can reduce its play cost by 5 when you already have a Lucemon on board means you can kind of practice as early as you see it. So yeah, good card, and really good support for this deck. It's a Royal Knight, not an Angel of some sort or a 7th grade Demon Lord, so you can't add this with EX6 Lucemon. But this little bugger here can find it. It's there for a reason. That being said, we're playing one copy of Dynasmon. Dynasmon is similar to Lord Knight, but its play cost reduction is different in that you need to have 4 or more cards with Ritual or Lucemon in their text. In trash, then you can reduce its play cost. And then on play when Digivolving, you trash your top security. All your opponent's Digimon get minus 6,000 DP for that turn. And then all turns, whenever your security stack is removed from, you may delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. This card is kind of your board clearer. As I mentioned earlier, you never want to evo into these Lucemons generally if your opponent has level 3 or lower Digimon on board. So while you have a Lucemon on board, you go ahead and hard send this. Well, again, assuming you have the 4 cards with Lucemon on their text, hard send it for 5 or for 6, and then trash your top security, wipe the board from all the small stuff from this first effect, and then go into the second effect, which says because you trash your security, delete your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. Ideally, they'll have 1 card left. You'll pop that card, then you'll place this in security to evo into one of these Chaos modes. And now that your opponent doesn't have a rookie to easily sacrifice, they have to make a painful choice of getting rid of something else or letting you trash one and recover 1. It's currently as 1 of. It doesn't, because it needs to have 4 cards with Ritual or Lucemon text and trash. It's kind of harder to reduce its play cost, but it's still kind of good. And also, I forgot to mention, it has a security effect that says when you're, when it's checking security, because you're gonna put it in there, your opponent's Digimon gets security -1 for the turn, and then one of the Digimon gets, or delete one Digimon with 3,000 DP or less. That effect I thought was kind of butt at first. It wasn't my favorite effect, but then I realized that effect is not for the 3k deletion, it's the security -1, and that will stop a lot of OTKs. It has come up, I like it. I'll keep it as a 1 of. I'll keep messing with it. I'll see, if it gets to keep its spot in the deck. Because like this next card, which has earned its spot, and that is this is my tech choice for the meta, and that is 2 copies of CS Mastemon or BT23 Mastemon. I'm going to read this card a little differently because there's a lot of text on here that's not relevant for this deck, and that is It evils over a yellow or purple level 5 Digimon for a cost of 5. And Digivolve or CS, you won't do that. DNA Digivolve, you'll never do that. Barrier is relevant, but Partition isn't because you don't play any of those ladies. And it has the effect, when Digivolving, you may play a level 5 or lower yellow or purple Digimon from your hand or trash without paying the cost. That's all you need to know about the when Digivolving effect. Because you're trying to play out these chaos modes for free. And in doing so, proccing the on-play effect, which is forcing your opponent to trash, recover, and all that good stuff. One thing that I need to mention, I know we kind of discussed that one of the weaknesses of this deck is when this card gets the Digivolve. If you can somehow get it on board without an inherited source from the QP or Luce, and it's just him by himself, well then these cards become really good. Because now your opponent can't de-Digivolve them, and now they're forced to fight them. Legitimately. So that's what makes Mastemon good. But what makes it even better is his alternates effect, which is when security stacks are removed from, you may place a Digimon as a bottom security card. So it kind of is a Chaos Degrade, which is her signature move. One thing that that makes this card strong in this deck is that there's multiple ways to proc this effect. And I mentioned earlier that this is my meta pick. It puts a lot of pressure against TS decks. It's good against Sirocco. It's good against any deck that removes security to do some sort of effect. Against Sirocco, if they evo into a Lamiamon, which has the effect of you forcing you to put a card from your hand to your security and then you trash the top card, well, now you can trigger the alternates and you get rid of that Lamiamon. If they promote an Agiomon, you trash your top security to play a Tamer, well, guess what? You now triggered Mastemon, and that Agiomon is now going to go away. You're going to put out the bottom security, and you can deal with it later. She's also an angel, so she is actually searchable with the X6 Kid Lucemon. I had cut her to 1, but then I realized I want to see her in all the matchups she's relevant in. And going back to TS, which is a big common deck in my area right now, the combo sequence involving her puts your opponent at exactly 5 memory. And that is relevant because it shuts off a lot of the Digimon and Tamers from TS. Again, and it puts them at exactly 5. That's right, player. Do you need this card in this deck? Probably not. And you can probably replace her for another card of your choosing. But I like her mostly as a meta pick. She is a flex spot. But if you can get her, you're going to see how much value you get from this card. I recommend playing it, but you don't have to. Go into the level 7s. We're playing 3 copies of Lucemon State Mode. This card evils over a level 6 purple Digimon for 6, or evils over a Chaos Mode for 6, and has on play when Digivolving by playing 1 Lucemon Larva from your trash to an empty breeding zone. Delete all your opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost. Then when Digivolving when attacking, your opponent may delete one of their Digimon or Tamers. If this effect didn't delete, you trash your top security and the Digimon unsuspends. That's her first effect is really good because it's the on play effect. So this is your prime target for this EX6 Lucemon. They get rid of this, it turns into this. This plays out the larva, then you blow up all the level 6s or all the highest play costs. But also when Digivolving when attacking, your opponent is almost certainly gonna delete something, because if they don't, then this puts a lot of pressure on security. Because you'll swing with it, if they don't delete anything, you're gonna unsuspend and then do 1 check. And then you're gonna attack again for a 3rd check, and if you have Paradise Lost, well, that's gonna be your last check. Or that's a 4th check. So it's really good at clearing things on your opponent's side of the board. But also good because it's an on play, it has an on play trigger, which is what you want to see. But he's not the only Seder mode we play. We also play 2 copies of the BT18 Seder mode. And I had this at 1 for a while, but then a lot of people are playing Liberator decks or a lot of like Tamer heavy decks. I found that even though it doesn't have an on play effect, it's still good. And that is when Digivolving by playing 1 Lucemon Larva from your trash to an empty breeding zone, delete your Digimon or Tamer. If you get into this card early, then it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent and they have to answer it very quickly because the end of all turn effects starts kicking in. And that is when end of all turns, once per turn, trash your opponent's top security. If they can't trash, you delete a Digimon and a Tamer. Now, when you're at that point in the game, it kind of seems like a win more card, but it kind of puts your opponent into checkmate situations on turns where you can't finish the game. You can't win on this turn. Where you sit on this, you pop 2 things, and if your opponent can't out this card in the following turn, well, you're gonna pop 2 more things, and then you just sort of win. It's a really good card. I wish I had an on-play effect, but it doesn't. But it's still meta relevant to at least warrant a 2nd copy. But you can honestly cut this card to 1 and play like a 7 Demon Lord of your choosing that's relevant in your locals. But that being said, these cards don't do anything unless you have this card. 4 copies of Lucemon Larva. This card has a security effect that you may play a kid Lucemon from your trash without paying its cost. So that's pretty good. It has a breeding effect, which is when any of your Digimon with Lucemon Satan mode will leave the battle area. By pushing this out from the breeding area, they don't leave. So that kind of serves as like a one-time protection for the Satan modes, and which is good. And then all turns, while you have a non-white Digimon with Lucemon in its name, none of your Digimon with 0 DP can be deleted. That is perhaps one of the weirdest effects on a card for this game's history. What that really means is, while you have a 0 DP Digimon, nothing can be deleted. He itself has 0 DP. If you're playing against a matchup like Puppets or Sequoia, where they're trying to, or anything that's trying to DP reduce your card to 0, the minute they DP reduce any of your Digimon to 0, that becomes immune to deletion, period. It can't be deleted by card effects, and it can't be deleted by battle, and it can't be deleted by deletion. So this card is kind of weird, and like it gains invincibility as long as there's another Lucemon on board. And in matchup where it's relevant, it's really strong, and you're gonna find yourself just playing this for 6 and just sitting on it as long as you have another Lucemon on board. You're gonna find a lot of decks that only have DP reduction as its only form of removal, having trouble breaking your board because this card's on there. When DP reduction isn't as relevant, well, this card's a level 6, so you can go ahead and trigger this end of turn effect by putting this to the top of your security, and if your opponent checks into it, well, you get to play another Lucemon. So it's a pretty good card, but you mainly want to see it because you want this with in tandem with one of these Satan modes to get full value from those cards. So good card. I had it at 3, I bumped it to 4, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it because it makes my Satan modes better. So that being said, we're gonna go to the final boss monster of the deck, and there's a lot of boss monsters here, but this is like the CEO of the deck, and that is Lucemon X Antibody. Evos over level 5 for a cost of 6, or Digivolve over a level 5 or higher Lucemon for a cost of 3. Level 5 or higher is relevant text because in addition to evoing on top of the Chaos modes, this card can evo over Satan mode and also the Larva mode, because this is a level 6 Digimon, so you can actually evo on top of that card. It has an alternate effect once per turn. When the Digimon will leave the battle area, by trashing both players' top security, it stays. And it does that if you have a Lucemon in this card's inherited sources, but that helps you sort of seal the game a lot of times. And it also has end of your turn, once per turn. Your opponent may trash their top security card. If this effect didn't trash, recovery +1 and delete one of their Digimons or Tamers of your choosing. You pick what to delete. A lot of times, because your opponent's so used to interacting with these Lucemons or this Satan mode, they're gonna try to pick whatever you're gonna delete. This card says no. You trash your security or I get to pick what to delete. It's pretty good. What makes this card kind of weird, and the reason why I kind of mention it like a CEO sort of like plant manager type of card, is because he has the least impactful effect on appearance. He doesn't have a win Digivolving, he doesn't have an on play. He's just there watching the entire, operations of this deck. But he's very critical in getting that last, 1 or 2 checks in and putting your opponent into this sort of checkmate situation. It's a card that some people cut from the deck. It's a card that I can't see myself cutting just because I like how game changing it is when it comes out with the Satan modes or with anyone else. It's just a good card, and that's all I have to really say about that. He's a good card. He puts a lot of pressure. That end of turn effect is one where your opponent is often going to find themselves trashing their own security, because you being able to select the target of deletion is just really strong for a deck like this. And so it is a good card, but I don't want to go much further because I feel like this video has gone long enough, and I do want to talk a little bit more about these next 2 sets of cards that are kind of make this deck. First one being 4 copies of Dokuson Aruba. This whole deck works, or this version of the deck works, because of this card. This card says, start of your turn, it's a memory setter. You go to 3. On play, one of your Digimon with Lucemon in its text on the field, which includes the breeding area, may Digivolve into a Digimon with a Lucemon in its name, in hand or trash, without paying the cost. So that's just good. That's really good. And then your turn, when any of your Digimon Digivolve into a Digimon card with Lucemon in its name, by suspending this tamer, gain 1 memory. That's really good too. The more copies of this card you see in circulation, the higher your win rate is for any matchup. Ideally, you open up with Aruba and this Lucemon, and you have a QP. You go turn 1, Aruba for 5, and then resolve the effect Evo into this card. Turn 2, you'll go to 3, you'll push out the Lucemon, trigger the QPmon, discard a card, draw 1, gain a memory, you go to 4, and now you have memory to work with. Before this card, you're constantly getting choked to 1 memory, and there wasn't a lot you can do with that. You go to 2, and you can do a few plays, but going to 4 is relevant, because now you can Evo into things, you can do stuff, and you can either go to 1 and gain a memory, or you can just choke your opponent to 1. It's kind of insane. This card enables a lot of these end of turn effects. I'll show you after this video, and for that reason, it's so critical to find this card. A lot of my games where I lost would be because I didn't find this card, and because this card's so good, I decided to add the 4th Ukomon back in because I need to see this card ASAP. If I don't find this card, the whole engine mechanic or the gimmick kind of falls apart. You're constantly going to get choked to 1. You're not going to be able to do end of turn stuff and keep turn. You just kind of are playing a very slow game. You need to find this card. You want to mulligan into him with one of these Lucemons. I guarantee it changes your matchup significantly. And again, there's so much more I can talk about with this card, but for the sake of time, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say, you want to Evo into things, go to 1 memory on your opponent's side, and then trigger an end of turn evolution into one of these chaos modes, and then go back to 0. That's how you sort of keep turn and pressure your opponent and do a lot of things with it's absolutely insane. You'll see it in some of the combos I show after this video, but you do need to find this card. It's an automatic 4-of. Cutting it to anything less would kind of be weird to me, but it's up to you to decide. But I just play the 4. Last card of the deck, Paradise Lost. This card is cracked. I have no other way to describe it other than it's just really insane value for a 2-cost option. I'll read you why. While you have a Digimon with Lucemon in its name on the field, you can ignore the color requirements. It has a trash effect and a main effect. I'm gonna go over the main effect first because that is kind of how you play it initially, which is until your opponent's turn ends, one of the Digimon with Lucemon in its name gains Raid, Piercing, Blocker, and plus 3000 DP. You mainly use that on one of the kid Lucemons. Specifically, if you Evo for 5 to your opponent's side, and they Evo in the back or they do things and they put out a rookie and put you back to 1. I mentioned earlier that you never want to Evo into these chaos modes while they have a rookie on board because they're going to sacrifice that rookie. You'll push out a Lucemon, you trigger the QP effect to draw a card, discard a card, draw 1, gain 1. Then you play Paradise Lost, give it Raid, plus 3000, block and all that stuff. Go to 0, and then you'll swing and you'll Raid into the only target, kill it, you'll do 1 check, and then now that they have nothing on board that you want to sacrifice, well, you can Evo into one of these Lucemon Chaos modes for 6, and then you will trash the top security and you recover 1, and if you really want to, you can do the second part of this Paradise Lost effect, which I'm going to read shortly. But this helps your Lucemons out the small bodies, so that when you Evo into these cards, then they have to force. You're able to put them in a situation where you're gonna get that second part of the effect, involving recovering and trashing their security. So now let's get into the trash effect, which is trash effect. Any return, copy the text that's written on Omnimon X antibody. That's how it should read. If you have a Digimon with Lucemon in its name, by returning this card to the bottom of the deck, trash your top security card and one of your Digimon attacks without suspending. The cost of this card is to bottom deck it from your trash, not the trashing security part. So if you have 0 security, you can still activate this card. You just go ahead and put it at the bottom, trash any security on your side if you have any, and then you swing without suspending. This card enables a lot of insane pressure that the deck did not have access to before. What I mean specifically is you can do a lot of crazy shenanigans. You know, I'm gonna save that for the next part of the video. That way I can just say, this is the profile as it currently stands. You can make a lot of changes. You can try it out the way it is. There are cards that are omitted here that other Lucemon players do play, like Dead or Alive, Seven Divine Crews, Gospel, or the Fallen Angel. Those are good cards. They didn't make the cut for this current version for a few reasons, and I can go into that later. But these cards generally are just good value cards. They're good in your hand, they're good in security, and it's a strong deck. And most importantly, it's very fun to play. And with the release of AD1, you get these Roaring Knight cards, but this Chaos mode got reprinted. So now this deck is actually really budget friendly. You can pick up all these cards relatively cheaply. And I would recommend you do so now before, you know, that set gets bought out and all these cards start disappearing from the market. Okay, the first thing I'm going to showcase is the Lucemon Triple Swing combo. To do this, you need 1 copy of EX Hand Lucemon, at least in hand, ideally in hand, 2 copies of Paradise Lost, hand or trash, and at least 1 copy in Chaos mode, ideally in trash. If you have, you can do this with the other Chaos mode, but the play is more potent with this one because you can trigger its effect multiple times in one turn. And here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to put these 3 in my hand. Let's just assume I got clogged up with all the Paradise Losses, but I have at least 1 copy of this Chaos mode in trash. Situations are going to come up where your opponent just completely wipes your board and is going to put you to 3 or whatever because you have the Tamer. On your turn, you're going to hatch a Cupimon and evolve that into EX10 Kid Lucemon for a cost of 5, going to your opponent's 2. Now this is going to trigger the breeding effect of this Lucemon, which is going to push it out and trigger the Cupimon effect, which, since I don't have Paradise Lost already, I'll trash 1 from my hand to draw 1 and then I'll gain 1. Now we're in this open game state where nothing else is going to be triggered, and therefore we're going to proceed to end of turns. Now normally people will trigger this end of turn first, but we're actually going to do Paradise Lost first, which says trash your top security, put this card to the bottom. This Digimon may attack without suspending. So you're now swinging as Lucemon. Okay, this is attacking, but in the middle of the attack, you still got to resolve his end of turn effect. So we're going to put 5 cards with Lucemon in their text, and I'm going to just grab these 5, put them to the bottom, put Mastemon back there, and it's going to evolve into this card. Remember, you're still in the middle of an attack. So now you swing, you evolve into this card, and then I'll trigger his Windage Evolving effect, which is trash 1 card in hand. Your opponent may delete a Digimon or Tamer, or you get a recover. Let's just assume they delete nothing, you're recovered. Okay, and then you're swinging, but also since you evolved until Digimon Lucemon in its name, you're gonna go ahead and trigger Dokuson to get a member. So now you kept turn, and you're still attacking. I keep saying you're still attacking because this is the part where people get confused. Swing, and then your opponent will let that go through. You'll do a security check. Well, it's still your turn, and this card doesn't have summoning sickness because they evolved off of the Cupimon, so you're gonna attack again and trigger the effect again, which is discard a card and tell your opponent delete something or recover. If they delete nothing, in this case we'll assume they won't, we'll recover again. Now, you swung once, you swung again, now by actually suspending it, and then I'm just going to pass turn by playing Ukomon for 3. We're going to go back into end of turns with a new Paradise Lost, which is trash a card from the top of security, bottom the Paradise Lost. Lucemon will now swing again. I'll trigger the effect again by trashing 1 card from my hand. They may delete a Digimon or Tamer. If they don't, well, you know what happens there. Recover 1. That's 3 attacks with 1 Lucemon. Lucemon players who play this deck are familiar with this combo. People who don't know the Lucemon matchup won't see this coming. You can cheese out a lot of wins like this. But even if they're not really cheeses, because you're pretty much effectively telling your opponent, delete 3 cards or I get a recover 3. And that's kind of good. And that is all enabled because of this EX10 Lucemon. So that's this combo. That's how you get 3 checks in. That's kind of how you steal games sometimes with this deck, is your opponent's down to like 2-3 security and you're just going for the triple swing and they're like, whoa, impressive. That's kind of good. So the next combo is the Mastemon Combo. To really do this, you just need EX and Lucemon, and you need Mastemon. That's really it. You can kind of chain off into a lot of different things from here, but you just need these two to do the basic combo. So in Digimon, as always, your board's always getting completely wiped. You'll hatch into a Cupimon, and then you'll hatch into EX10 Lucemon, which will then see itself, or it evolves, and then the breeding effect will push it out, triggering a Cupimon effect. Trashing one card from my hand, drawing one card, gaining a memory. At this point, there's no other effects that are being resolved. You do the Paradise Lost thing at this, if you want to, but for the purpose of this combo, we're not going to do it here. We're going to go ahead and trigger Kid Lucemon's end of turn effect by placing 5 cards of Lucemon's text to the bottom of the deck. This will evolve into Chaos mode without paying cost. Again, similar to like the first combo, you draw a card for evoing, trigger the effect. I'll trash a card from my hand, and then your opponent may delete a card or let you recover. Let's assume they let you recover. They don't want to delete anything. They have a big boss monster, they don't want to lose it. So you activate the Wind Digivolving effect, and because you evolved into a card with Lucemon in its name, you can go and trigger the Dokuson to gain the memory and go back to 0. Then you will declare an attack with Lucemon Chaos mode, triggering the effect, discarding a card from your hand, and giving your opponent the option again to delete something on their side or let you recover. And they are not going to let you delete their boss monster, so they're going to just let you recover. At this point, and this play becomes much stronger if you have Paradise Lost, is you went to the Mastemon for 5. Draw. When Digivolving, play a level 5 or lower card or yellow or purple Digimon from your trash. Lucemon Chaos mode, EX6 being the ideal target, but you can also go into this card, and I'll show you both effects. But this effect on play, tell your opponent delete one of your cards or let me recover, and you'll trash your top security. And let's just say they refuse to give up anything, so you just go ahead and recover, trash your top security. Well, if security gets trashed on their side, well, now you triggered Mastemon's all turns once per turn. When security gets removed, put one of your opponent's Digimon or put one of your Digimon to the bottom of security. Depending on what you're up against, you can put their card to the bottom security, or you can put your Chaos mode to your security and trigger his Alter's effect to play out your own Satan mode, which will go ahead and play the larva, and then this will delete all your opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost. This combo is pretty potent because it lets your opponent or force your opponent to make multiple decisions in one turn. And one thing in Lucemon is the more choices they have or they have to make in a single turn, the more oppressive the deck is against their opponent. So there will be situations where your opponent just will refuse to trash security to avoid the Mastemon effect. When that happens, you can actually use Paradise Lost, trash your top security, put this to the bottom. Mastemon will now swing without suspending. She swings at 13k and barrier, but because security got removed from that Paradise Lost, well, now you can trigger Alternate's effect and bottom deck one of their Digimon or bottom deck your Chaos mode and still kind of push damage and pressure to your opponent. And if she sticks around, then your opponent's sort of locked out from playing the cards that let them remove security for either playing the Tamer or for replacing herself with an option. They get none of that because of her. She's a really good meta relevant card. It's a very strong play that the deck has access to now, and she's an angel, so she's a searchable tech, which I do like a lot. That's a Mastemon combo. Try it out. Alrighty, we have combo 3 now. This is the one that I like to call the illusion of choice. Primarily because your opponent often doesn't really have a choice. The game normally ends right then and there, or if they do have a choice, it's not a good one. Here's how it works. You need at least 3 memory to start off with, a Satan mode that has survived a turn, a BT18 Satan mode that has survived a turn, placing larva in the back, and at least 1 Kid Lucemon in your hand, 1 AD1, and a Paradise Lost in trash. This is how it works. I will start a turn, breeding phase, whatever, move out the larva. Okay, let's just assume this stack here is my opponent's security. They have 4 security left because on the prior turn the Satan mode trashed 1. In this case, I'm going to swing with the larva. Remember that larva cannot be deleted under any condition as long as there's another Lucemon on board. So security check with larva. We'll check 1 and we'll put these cards to the side for now, just for the demo. Then you'll swing with the Satan mode, doing another check. It will likely not die. And if it doesn't, sorry, the combo fails. But if it survives, well, now your opponent's down to 2 security, and this is what we do next. Lucemon Larva is going to evolve into Lucemon X antibody for a cost of 3. You're not going to activate anything at that point. You're just evolving into him. Then you're going to hard slam the Kid Lucemon for a cost of 5 because I don't have a level 5 or lower Digimon on board. You'll search top 3, add a card in your hand, trash the rest. Not relevant here. Then you're entering end of turn. The first end of turn you're going to trigger is Lucemon Satan mode, which just says your opponent trashes top security. You trash the third one. Then you're going to trigger Kid Lucemon's end of turn effect, which is by placing a level 6 Digimon to the top of your security. This can evolve into Luce Chaos and Trash without paying cost. You're going to attempt to put Lucemon X antibody into your security. Lucemon X antibody is going to trigger its all turns effect, which is going to interrupt it by saying, by trashing both players' top security, he'll stay. So you're going to do that. You're going to trash your opponent's security, you're going to trash your security. Now you're going to trigger his end of turn effect, which is if your opponent has no security, well, you could delete something and you'll recover 1. Assuming you pop a tamer or whatnot, you'll recover 1. But you still can trigger Paradise Lost, which is end of turn by trashing your top security. One of your Digimon may swing, without suspending. So you're going to do that to swing with one of these cards. If your opponent has 0 security, that's just game. And that all occurred because your opponent was down to 4 security. Your opponent was in danger by having 4 security and letting the Satan mode survive. This combo is really good. It's very strong. If you pull it off, if you don't win that turn, you're going to delete a lot of cards that are going to be valuable to your opponent, and you're also going to recover 1. So your opponent's still in a bad spot. That's it for this combo. Thanks for watching.